Does that mean we have to be nice now?
Yes.
God.
No, it just means you have to be a little bit more politically correct. Also,
So it is nice having these recordings up on the website afterwards, so I know I've gone back. We're actually looking at our sponsor from last quarter. We're going to do a demo with them, and we're very interested in their product.
All right, let's get started. I want to thank everyone for coming today. And as Darrell said, yes, it's a tough time of the month right now with a lot of month-end closes. So hopefully people will jump on and jump off during the call. And I want to thank Verania. Is that how you pronounce that, Bill?
Yeah.
Our meeting sponsor for today. So, and we'll hear from Bill a little bit later. So, but first up, we've got Tim. Tim's going to go through Suite QL. And actually, I didn't even clue into that until I typed that out. That's a good play on SQL. So good on NetSuite coming up with that term as well. Everything is sweet, right? So off to you, Tim.
Okay, let me try to share my.
Be able to share. I'll stop.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, first, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to present today. I don't know exactly how much time you've allocated for this, so I've tried to keep this brief. And we can go longer if we have time and if you have questions. So, so with that, I'll try to get started. So my name is Tim Dietrich. I am a developer that specializes in NetSuite. I've actually been using NetSuite for, I guess, just about 4 years. I still feel like a newbie to it. I think if you ask me 10 years from now, I probably will still feel that way. I'm an independent contract developer, not working for any partners or anything like that. I do some subcontract work for some of the big guys, but usually it's just, you know, clients working directly with me under contract. I'm based in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm the developer of the Suite QL query tool, which I'll show in just a minute. As a result of building that thing and blogging all about Suite QL, I've inadvertently become known as the Suite QL guy, which is not something that I had ever aspired to. But anyway, it works. And my website is listed there. I'll show it again later. That's how you can download the tool, and I've got a blog up there and all that good stuff. All right. This is the first time I'm using Keynote in the browser. So if it goes haywire, I've got to back up. All right. Maybe. Come on. Oh, that's good. All right, give me a second. Let me switch to Keynote itself and get out of the browser.
It's because you're a Mac user, man.
Hey now.
Having Lisa.
All right, Tim, I'm on a Mac too. Just ignore them.
Yeah, I feel bad for all the other, you know, whatever you're on. Anyway, so my goal with this today is to introduce you to Suite QL, and to do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about it first, what it is and why it's, I think, becoming a big deal. And then I'm going to show you the tool that I developed and show you some queries. And I think that in the process of showing you those queries, it'll kind of give you a sense of what Suite QL is, how it can be used, and so on. And when we wrap up, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And feel free to stop me as I'm going if you feel like you want to do that. I'll try to keep an eye on questions up in the toolbar and so on. But at the end, I'll ask or have you ask me questions. And if we've got time at the end, I can show you kind of a real world use of this. So, all right. So what is Suite QL? It is a query language. It is just, it's a language that we can use to access data in NetSuite. It is based on the SQL database query language that I would think many of you have heard of, if not used in the past. Specifically, it's based on the SQL 92 specification. How many of you, and I don't know that there's any way, maybe you could raise your hands for the people I can see, but how many of you have used SQL in the past for database? Okay, so I think this is going to be familiar to you, and that's actually one of the really nice benefits of SuiteQL, is that if you have SQL experience, I think you're going to find that this is kind of a welcomed change. It can be used in a number of different ways inside of NetSuite. You can use it with Suite Analytics Connect if you guys are using that. SuiteTalk REST, so you can use it to make to submit queries and get results back through the SuiteTalk API. And if you're a developer developing Suite scripts, you can use it as well with the query module. So the benefits of using SuiteQL are that it really gives you functionality for querying data that I don't think you're going to find. Well, I say that, but you can do some of this in saved searches, but it's generally easier and a little more powerful to query the data directly through SuiteQL. In some cases, you can actually get to data that is either impossible to get to any other way or difficult to get to. It's typically very fast. You get the results back in seconds in most cases, depending on the query. And again, it's very convenient for developers and users who have SQL experience. So if you've just been kind of itching to, I just want to get to the data, just let me write a select statement, then I think you're going to like this. It's very concise. If you're a developer and you've used saved searches inside of your scripts, I think you're going to find that using queries is just a much more, it's a concise and easier way to do it. The code just is much cleaner. And again, it can be used in scripts, but I've also, when I first released the tool that I'm about to show you, most of the users that would reach out to me about it were developers. And now what I'm finding is that there are what I guess I would refer to as power users, people like Lisa, who I don't think she considers herself to be a developer, but we're getting her there. But what I'm finding is that those sort of power users are starting to use the tool to get to data that they're having trouble getting to in other ways. So you can use it for ad hoc reporting and doing research and troubleshooting and things like that. All right, so the tool that I developed, I've been calling it the SuiteQL query tool. It's a admittedly just blah name, but what are you going to call it? It's an application that I developed. It's actually a Suite script. It is basically used to create and run queries inside of NetSuite itself. It's a free tool. You can download it from my website. I've got the link at the end here. And I think that's part of the reason why it took off and why people started calling me the SuiteQL guy. I think if I had charged for it, I probably wouldn't be on the call. All right, so I'm going to jump over into NetSuite itself. Bear with me. All right, so the NetSuite account that I'm using today, can you guys see that okay? Okay. It's a test drive account, and I want to give a shout out to Christian Schmitz, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and the team over at the Anchor Group. They're a NetSuite partner. They do a lot of work in Suite Commerce. They made this account available to me for doing development and testing and so on, and that's what I'm using for the demo today. So all the data that you're seeing in here, with the exception of the Bitcoin stuff, all that is that you're about to see is just test data. So I've got the tool installed, and I'm actually working on creating a video to show how to install the tool. It's not available as a Suite app or a bundle, at least not yet. So I've already got it installed, and if you need help installing it later on, just let me know. but I've got it installed and I've got it as a favorite. So I'm just gonna launch the app. And there it is. Pretty plain looking, but I think what you're going to see is that behind all the simplicity of the interface is a lot of power. So I've got the tool loaded. This area over here is where we put the query in that we want to run. And as I go through the demo, I'll talk about all these different options. But for now, I'm just going to put a really simple query in here. And then for you, those of you who are familiar with SQL, again, this will be like, oh, well, that's the simplest query ever. But basically what I'm asking for is a list of all the employees that are in the account and all of the columns, all the values that we have for those employees. So I'm just going to run the query. And if I make this a little bit bigger, you can see the results down here at the bottom. They're ugly because I'm asking for all the columns. But you can see it brought back 172 rows, in other words, 172 employee records, and it did it in 633 milliseconds. If I scroll down, you can see all the data. And if I start to scroll to the right, you can see all the different columns. So there's that. If I wanted to limit this to certain columns, in other words, I don't want all of those columns. Maybe I only want last name, first name, email, and phone number. I can just select those columns. And if I run the query, you'll see that the results now are starting to look a little bit friendlier, easier to use. So all I did there was, again, specify the columns that I wanted back.
Did you paste those columns, Tim, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It was very fast.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I'm pasting the thing. I wanted to make sure I didn't, you know how it is when you're on a screen share like this. That's when your fingers decide that they're going to turn into sausages.
That's when you can't find a comma.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, I'm copying and pasting the queries in. It's not, I wish the tool was smart enough, maybe in the future we'll have some sort of AI where, I don't know, we're chipped and we can just go. So I'm going to paste a different version of that query in now. This time I'm specifying the specific employees that I want back. In other words, I'm now saying that I want a list of the employees where their email is like test.com. And because I'm in a test drive account, there are actually fake employees in there with that type of email address. So when I run it, you can see that now not only am I limited, or have I limited the columns that I was asking for, but now I'm also getting a limited number of records back. Okay, and so the very last thing that I might want to do with this query is put them in order alphabetically. And so if I put in a where clause, I'm now telling NetSuite that I want the list back, but this time sort them in alphabetical order by last name and then subsorted by the first name. And if I run the query, you'll see they're now in alphabetical order. Am I going too fast? Is everybody following along? Okay. So for those of you that do know SQL, I apologize for how simple all that was, but for those of you who don't know SQL, I think you can see that it's pretty easy to use. I remember first being exposed to SQL in college, and I wish every programming language was as easy and nice as this. Okay, so I mentioned that I would kind of go through some of the functions of the tool itself, and I want to show you first a much more complicated query. You're gonna, hopefully this won't make your head explode. So I'm pasting this one in again. This one is a query that's going to return back to me all of the transactions that are in the account. It's going to join to the entities. In other words, if it's say it's a sales order, it's going to join to the customer. If it's a purchase order, it's going to join to the vendor. It's also going to join to the employee that entered the transaction or that was getting credit for it. So if it's a sales order, it's going to join to the sales rep. And it's also joining to the line items for those transactions. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to not only show you that you can start with one table and then join to many if you need to, but I'm also trying to give you a query or show you a query where I'm going to get a lot of data back. And again, this is a test drive account. So when I say a lot of data, it's not like your production accounts where you guys probably have, you know, tens of thousands of transactions. So I'm going to run the query. And you can see it's taking a little bit longer this time because it's getting a lot of data. So it came back in roughly 1.3 seconds. And notice that it brought back 5,000 rows. Let me just sort of scroll down a little bit. I'm not going to make you sit through all of it, but you can see there's a lot of data here. And so my reason for showing you that again is I wanted to show you that we can use joins to kind of go from one table to the related tables. And again, also that you can bring a lot of data back. Now, in this case, it only brought back 5,000 rows. And I can tell you for a fact that there are more than that in this account. So one of the limitations of SuiteQL is that it will only ever bring back 5,000 rows at a time. And it'll only bring back 3,000 rows if you're trying to run these types of queries through SuiteTalk. So there is a limitation on that. However, the tool that I've developed will actually let you get around that. And you can do that by enabling, I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing, but the pagination options up in the top right corner. So basically what these allow us to do is specify rows that we want to get back. Like right now, if I were to run the query again, it's only going to bring me back rows 1 through 25. Let me just do that real quick. Sorry. That little bug that you saw right there has to do with a new feature that's in the tool that I won't bore you with the details. But, and if I scroll down, you can see now that it actually brought back 25 rows and it did it in 308 milliseconds. If I wanted to actually, for whatever reason, let's say I only want rows 5 through 20, you can actually specify those rows to come back. And there they are. So I mentioned that with the pagination options, you can actually get back more than the 5,000 rows that SuiteQL normally limits you to. And one of the ways I can do that is by clicking the return all rows column here. I'm going to do that. It's going to take a little bit longer because now what it's doing is really getting all of those transactions, sales reps, customers, transaction lines. You can see that this time it brought back 8,316 rows, and it did it again in just about 1.3 seconds. And if I start scrolling, eventually at the bottom, you'd see there are 8,000 some rows in the table. Okay. Before I continue, I'm sure you guys have questions, or maybe you do. Anything yet? Okay.
I was just going to ask, so when you format results as table, then the other options there, if I hit CSV, it goes directly to a CSV download?
Yeah, I'm going to show you those in just a minute. It doesn't go right to a download, but it gives you a really easy way to take the CSV formatted data and put it in a spreadsheet or whatever you want to do with it. So I'm going to go through those in just a minute.
And Tim, are there any SQL functions that are unsupported at this time, or is all of this, is it all supported?
There are some limitations to it. There are also some surprises in there. There are some what we refer to as built-in functions that you can use. You can actually see some of them in this query here. And I'll talk about those in a minute as well. I have a slide where I have some limitations that, like things to keep in mind when it comes to using SuiteQL. The biggest one is that it's read-only, right? Like I can't sit here and do an insert, an update, a delete, and that's fine. I'll take it, right? If you can let me run select statements, I can get a lot of work done with that. In the future, I think we might see them open it up a little bit more for us to do data manipulation basically through SuiteQL, like you could if you were using the ODBC option. But again, for now, it's select only or read only, I should say. And there's actually, if you're an administrator, there may be some piece in that, like I don't have to worry about somebody getting in here and delete, star or delete all the transactions or, whatever. So it's safe. Okay, so I'm gonna uncheck the return all rows and just sort of bring back rows 1 through, I don't know, 1,000. Just because I don't want to be scrolling up and down thousands and thousands of rows here. But I want to show you too that by default, I'm hiding the row number. So when you turn on the pagination options, one of the ways that what's going on behind the scenes when you submit the query is it is actually assigning a row number, a sequential row number to each column. And you can see when I uncheck that hide row numbers option, it actually has the row numbers listed there. So you can choose to hide or show those. And then I'm going to jump around a little bit to, you can see that the values that are coming back that are null values. And for those of you who don't know SQL, a null value is, a lot of people mistake it and think it's either a blank or a 0 or something like that. But it's basically the database's way of saying, I don't know what the value is for that particular cell, if you want to call it that. So it's not that it's blank, it's just that it hasn't even been set at all. And so by default, the way I'm displaying those in the tool is just, you can see maybe the word null, it's very dimmed, but you can choose to show them as if they're blank, put the word null in and actually have it be dark. So it's just a nice way to kind of format those values because they can be kind of weird sometimes. Again, I'm going to jump around a little bit more to I mentioned that you can format the results in different ways. Right now, I'm looking at the results as just a table, an HTML table, but I can actually enable something called the data table. And what this lets me do is look at the results and tweak the way that they're being shown without having to rerun the query. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm looking at 100 rows at a time. If I go to the bottom, I can actually paginate through. And it's doing all this without sending the query back up to NetSuite. You can also choose to sort without changing the query. So I can sort them by, say, type or by status. And you can also search by keyword. So I think Apple is somewhere in here. So I can put that in, I can continue to type and narrow it down to rows that have the word Apple and iPad somewhere in the row. So that's what the data table option is. And yes, you can actually get the data in a CSV format. So if you want to view the data as CSV, comma separated values, just click the button and it will change the display. And then you can actually click to load the data. It's now on my clipboard. If I bring up numbers, I'm a Mac guy, not an Excel, not a Microsoft guy, so no Excel on my machine. I know Lisa's over there going, what numbers, what? So I'm just gonna, yeah, sorry. I just created a blank spreadsheet and I'm pasting in the CSV values and numbers because it's a Mac and because it works. It just takes the CSV and makes a nice, pretty spreadsheet for us. But you could drop this into, a Google sheet. You could put it in Excel, God forbid. But there you go. Or just take it and put it in a file somewhere if you need to get the data out to somebody. So there's your CSV option.
So I think people are looking at this going, okay, this is awesome, but how do I learn the table structure? I mean, that's the biggest problem with NetSuite is the table structure is a little brutal and it takes a while. And that's where Tim's blog is awesome because he actually has sample queries that he's written in the past for other clients, and it helps you adapt and work out these joins and what you can get out of it. And I know Tim's going to get there, but I'm going to push him there. The tables reference button is an awesome button where you get to type in what you're looking for, and it will give you some clues to where to start. The one thing I want to point out is that JSON format is awesome when you don't know what the hell the rows names are, like the column names. So I tend to just do select star from transaction, bring me back one row, and now I look at the column headings and go, what am I interested in? Copy paste and start narrowing it down. And that's how and I'm an accountant, and I've worked out how to use this because I want more joins, right? So
Yeah,
I really like it.
I'm going to get to the tables reference too. But yeah, I agree. Like the JSON format, which is what I just selected as the result, and I'm only bringing back one record. As a developer, this is what I live and die by, especially when it comes to integration. But what's really nice about it is it makes it really easy for you to kind of get a sense of what the values look like, especially if you bring back, say, 5 rows. I can get an idea of what the values are. And it's also really nice if you don't know the table names or the column names, rather. You can just do select star, and then you can get it like, okay, out of all these crazy fields, what one is just the customer's like legal name, for example. And it's just a really good way to do that. So that's what JSON is. And just like the CSV option, you can just click and copy it, paste it into some other tool. I am constantly pasting it into my IDE so that I can then start in my code referencing those columns, and I have a really good idea then of what they really are. And I'm going to just show 2 other, what I think are really kind of interesting formatting options as well. I'm going to reload the tool because I don't want to kind of muddy this, but I'm going to go back to using a query where it's just a simple query where I'm asking for some employees back. I'm getting all 172 employees, and they're sorted by last name again. But the 2 other options I wanted to show real quick are you can actually generate PDFs based on your data. And what this is doing is using the same technology that we use in NetSuite to do advanced PDFs. So if you're familiar with that, well, if you are, I'm sorry, because it can be crazy at times, but I've got a really simple PDF template here. For those of you who know HTML, this might look very familiar. So I've got the PDF option selected. I've got my data loaded. I've got the template in. And if I click generate document, it's going to open a new tab, and it actually creates a PDF. So there's that. And then I can do the same thing to generate an HTML document. I'm going to just put a different template in here. But notice I haven't changed the data at all. I haven't rerun the query. So when I generate this HTML document, I guess I forgot to change the option. There's your HTML document. And if I view the source, you can see it really did, there it goes. It really did generate HTML. So basically what it's doing is it's merging the results of the query with the template and then spitting out the HTML. Any questions so far? Okay.
No.
All right, so I'm going to get to the good part. So yeah, the function that Lisa mentioned is the tables reference. If I click on that, it actually opens a new tab, and it loads what is essentially an app within an app, right? This is, you can kind of think of this as a separate app. I've actually thought about just making it available separately. The data that you're seeing here it's a list of all the columns. I'll show 100 at a time. These are all of the tables that are available in this particular NetSuite account. And the way that I'm getting this data in the tool is it's actually based on, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but the records catalog that is built right into NetSuite. This is kind of their version of what I'm showing over on the other tab. But let's suppose that I'm looking at the employee table. There I go, typing, right? This is kind of what they show. It's a little bit slow. It's a little bit weird looking. My version of that is over here. And if I go, I can you can see all the tables that have the word employee in it. And if I click on a table, it'll show you all the information that I have through that API that's about that table. So all the columns, all the tables you can join to. It even gives you a sample query that you can copy and then paste over in the editor to kind of get your query going. You can then, sort of whittle out the columns you don't need. You can add your where clause. But that's what this is to be used for. And then of course you can search within this. So if I'm looking for trying to figure out what column the supervisor is for that employee, there they are. And so that's the SQL tables reference.
When you're doing these searches, Tim, can you leverage Boolean characters?
Boolean characters?
Yeah, like or.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you mean in here or in the tool?
Well, it originally was back at the data tables, but I just saw you use search again, and I would be more interested at data tables, at the data tables level, right?
Yeah,
if you have a large set.
I think it's just doing a keyword search and it's looking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's a JavaScript plugin, and it's really pretty amazing if you get a chance to look at it. In one of my blog posts, I actually have a link to it. It's wild because you just literally say, hey, there's this HTML table that I've got, do your thing. And it creates that data table. There's no programming
Right.
on my end other than just saying, hey, show it this way instead of the normal HTML way. All right, so I'm getting close to wrapping up here. How much time?
Not much longer, Tim.
Okay. Yeah, I'm almost done. So 2 other quick things here back in the tool itself. There is this concept of a remote library. This is a query library that I've made available. It's hosted, it's shared. And it's basically, right now I've got 45 queries that are in there that I've found to be helpful. You can come in here and you can search by keyword again. So if I'm looking for a query, suppose I'm looking for a query where it involves roles, I can say, okay, maybe this one will be helpful, and it will load it right into the tool for you. You can then run it and it'll show you. In this case, it's has to do with employees and the roles that they have and permissions they have. We also have a concept of a local library, so you can store your own queries in your file cabinet. You can save them, you can load them. It's very good if you're trying to collaborate with someone else. And
So that's a good way to learn the queries, because if you start reading this, you'll see the power.
Yeah, Lisa mentioned my blog. And so, yeah, I've got tons and tons of queries that I share in here, and I write about, customer came to me with this, scenario. Can you help me do such and such? And I kind of talk about, okay, here's how I approached it, the tables that are involved and so on. And so there's that. I think that's it. Let me pull up, there's a couple more boring slides, but I mentioned some of this already. It's read-only. The access that you have in the tool is based on whatever role you're logged in as. So I'm logged in as an admin in this particular account, but if I were logged in as, say, I don't know, a customer service rep, a sales rep, and you wanted to even make the tool available to them, you don't have to make it to them available to them, obviously. But if they were in here, they would only be able to run queries against the tables that their role has access to, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about, are they seeing stuff they shouldn't be seeing? Because if they can see it in the UI, the normal NetSuite UI, then they're going to see it here. Let's see. Again, you can join to as many tables as you need to. There are some tables, every once in a while, another developer will, email me and say, hey, I'm trying to find such and such. At least I think you and I have actually had this happen a few times where there's just some tables that we just can't get to. They just haven't made them available through SuiteQL. Wish I had a good example, but I'm sure later today somebody will email me. I'll be like, okay, there's one. And then just wrapping up real quick, the tool's available for free. It's under an MIT license. It's not available as a Suite app or a bundle. I'm not a partner, so I don't really have any easy way to do that. You can download it and manually install it. And again, eventually I'm going to create a little video on how to do it. It's pretty simple. And you can get it from my website. And I think we're probably out of time, but if not, I'll answer questions, but that's it. Thank you. So I think there are a bunch of things in here. Yeah. Okay.
It's a brilliant tool. We've done so much with it in the last 4 months. And in our situation, we're dealing with a company that's got over 130 subsidiaries. So they're dying a slow death, trying to get anything out of NetSuite due to the sheer volume. So we've really helped them. Because you can't script financial reports. That's one of the biggest challenges, and they need help. So we found this tool awesome.
Yes, I know we've run out of time, but it's accounts like that where well, I think any NetSuite user is gonna, or customer is gonna find that the query, being able to write queries is helpful, but the more complicated the account, in other words, a one world account with a lot of subsidiaries, or dealing in multiple currencies and currency revaluations and things like that. This is where you can really do some interesting things. If we had had time, I would have talked more about this, but this query that I just pulled up is actually, it's a real thing that I'm working on right now. I have a client that needs to know the breakout of how the licenses are being used by subsidiary. I think what they're going to do is ding the subsidiaries internally for the cost of the accounts. Or of the licenses rather. And so this is a breakout of by subsidiary, how many of the employees for each subsidiary have access to NetSuite. So it's just things like that, yeah, there's probably some other way to get to it, but this is a quick, easy way to do it. And as a developer, I can then take that query and I can build it into like a dashboard or, I mean, the sky's the limit, really. If you know SQL, I think you're really going to like using this. And if you don't, I encourage you to learn it. So, are there any other questions?
Awesome, Tim. Great work on this.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can see some absolute, like really good use cases already for this.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you just added a whole bunch of more stuff onto my plate, and we're not even fully in NetSuite yet. And I'm finding, as the administrator, I'm an accountant, I'm not a tech person necessarily. I can't get the data out the way I want it. I can't find the data that I want right now. And we're in the learning process, right? Because we're still working through the bugs of the install, right? Because we went live like a couple weeks ago and we found bugs after bugs after bugs, and this didn't work and that didn't work and all sorts of fun stuff. So see, Lisa's laughing because she knows, but and so my boss will say, well, can you give me this so I can give this to this person? And I can't even find the data and I can't get it to look at the data. And then what I'm told is, well, that's at the header level and that's at the transaction level, and it's never in the same query. And you bought the out of the box, so I can't help you. So this is above my head, but it's fascinating because this is the kind of stuff I need to get into and the data analytics and stuff. So as a newbie to the group, I thank you, because all you guys are doing is inspiring me to where we can go, which is awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I think Lisa hit on this, probably the most difficult part of using this, besides learning SQL. Honestly, SQL is pretty simple. If you understood what I did in those first queries, where it was just select this from this and so on, then you've got it, like the fundamentals. The hardest part with using it is, okay, well, where's the data? What table is the data?
Exactly. I need to modify a thing. Where the hell is it?
Yeah, I think that's where the tables reference can help sometimes, because you can pop in here and search for, crazy things like, currency rates and so on. And it's especially helpful when you're trying to find the right column name. And if you guys want, in a future meeting, I'd be happy to come back and show you some tricks on, you can find the thing in the UI. How can I get the table names? Like, is there a way kind of behind the scenes? And there are tricks that you can use to get the right table names, the right column names. it takes some time, but eventually you start to even get to a point where you can begin to guess and say, okay, yeah, I think I know what that
Yes,
column name
please.
is.
Please book that meeting.
Yes, we'll be having you back, Tim.
I'd be happy to, yeah.
Tim, thank you for building this tool. It's a really cool tool for developers like us. But I think you also inspired NetSuite. That's the reason they built like NetSuite Analytics Warehouse. It is similar to Power BI. Do you get a chance to like work on the new NetSuite tool?
I haven't had a chance yet. I've actually had some of the partners that were beta testing it reach out to me because I think they're going to try to leverage SuiteQL in those tools and just get a jump on, what the data looks like when it is in the data warehouse. But no, almost all the work I do is just in NetSuite itself or developing things like web applications, portals, mobile apps, things that are using all this behind the scenes to just quickly get the data in and out. So, yeah. But yeah, again, thank you for having me. I'm sorry if I ran over time. There's a lot to talk about, obviously, and a lot of tricks and things that I could have shown you. And maybe in the future we can do that. If in the meantime, feel free to go to my website. And if you want, just, reach out to me. I'll be happy to, answer questions, even if it's just like, hey, can you give me a clue of like, what's the name of this table that I'm looking for? Or do you have a query that does X? I'll do my best to help you out. So.
And don't forget the LinkedIn page, because you can do that and share knowledge amongst ourselves, etc. Because I even know some of this stuff. Okay, we move
All
on.
right.
Thanks,
All
Mark.
right, guys.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
right.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Tim.
Yep.
And I put your URL in the agenda here as well. So
Okay.
when people get this afterwards, then there'll be an easy, click over to your site. But I'm guessing everybody's already gone to your site during this presentation because it was fantastic. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
You too, Tim. Thanks. All right, our meeting sponsor now. So Bill Jones from Verenia is going to walk us through, his offering. And thanks very much again for being sponsored today.
Yeah, no problem. I need, I think Tim has to stop sharing for me to share, or Mark.
I'll stop sharing. Go for it, Bill.
Great. So Tim is a tough act to follow. That tool is really, I have a lot of friends who are NetSuite consultants, and I think they would love that tool. So you might see an uptick in downloads over the next couple of weeks here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, Verenia configure price quote. I'll dive into more of what this means in some upcoming slides, and I'm going to do a demo for you today also of our solution. The agenda looks long, but it actually really is pretty short. I'll jump in. So I'm in my third year with Verenia. And prior to that, I spent 5.5 years in the NetSuite services space, working with folks like yourselves, right? So I've been either in or up alongside NetSuite for quite some time. And a lot of you might not be familiar with CPQ or configure price quote. So I want to just cap what that is. Configuration is used by companies offering products or services that come with options. And that really sounds like every company. And in reality, it is. Not everybody needs a CPQ, but many could benefit from it. And, salespeople or customers, they have a need to work through a selection of those options really quickly and accurately. And now I've got the cats, I put the dog away. Now the cat is coming in because I'm doing a demo. So of course it's always like that. So, salespeople, customers want to work through the selection of options quickly and accurately. For many companies, this process is manual, going through a spreadsheet that could be thousands of lines long, hundreds of lines wide, columns wide. Can take many minutes to hours to complete, and it's often the #1 source of errors. So, if you go back and do an analysis of why did we make this mistake, you find that the mistake was made misreading a spreadsheet or something simple like that. That's the configuration side. Pricing is done by all companies, right? It's dependent upon the configuration or what are the answers to the questions our salespeople ask, but also customer information, item information, on-demand discounting by the salesperson. Many different factors go into the pricing. And for manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers, the pricing part with our solutions done in parallel to the configuration of a product. But software and services companies don't really configure, but in a way they are configuring. They're configuring the price. If you consider they're still leveraging a spreadsheet or a work breakdown structure to figure out, a price or a range of hours. And then the Q in CPQ is for quoting. And so we help automate the quoting process that helps ensure, across the company consistency in pricing and in the content. And it even helps you position the company as a leader in your market segment, right? So it really helps you stand apart. So, to summarize at a high level, CPQ allows for the selection of a product or service, the determination of a price, and the delivery of a quote to the customer in a fast, 100% accurate way, while maintaining full, discount discipline and document control. I didn't mention it before. If you have questions that come up, please ask them as we go. We've got plenty of time. I'll if there's no questions, I'll probably wrap up in about 20, 25 minutes. How can Verenia help your business, right? So Verenia streamlines predominantly the sales to order process, and it does so through two primary functions. The first is saving your team or your customer time in determining what to sell, as well as the price of that product or service. Time spent on double checking or double data entry, we eliminate that. Time to produce a proposal, we slash that by a huge percentage. And also the time to produce items, bills of materials, and routings. So if everybody uses, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of companies use items, manufacturers use bills of materials and routings. We will automate the creation of those, and there will be no duplicates. So for companies using those, that's a huge time sink, creating all of those entities. The second function is error reduction or elimination. So many companies report the majority of their errors resulting in an RMA or a refund to the customer come from a mistake made before the order was placed. A sales mistake, right? Never happens to your salespeople, right? So Verenia provides that user, whether it's an internal user like a sales or customer service rep, or your customer, if they're accessing, B2B portal, helps them eliminate errors. And it's really not uncommon to eliminate 100% of sales-related errors. So we are the only native NetSuite CPQ on the market today. So what does that mean, right? And if you ever go to suiteapp.com, you'll see these badges, and ours says native Suite app. And that's really like the cream of the crop of the Suite apps. So it means that we've written our software within NetSuite. So if you purchase our solution, we are a bundle download. It takes a couple of minutes, just like you might download a bundle. And because we're within NetSuite at that point, there's no integration to pay for, manage, or synchronize. And by the way, if your NetSuite is integrated to something else, therefore so are we, because we're part of NetSuite at that point. So we have access to all the records in NetSuite, so you can bring together item data, customer data, data from custom records. Anything, you can bring this into your proposals or into your quotes and sales orders. And because we're part of NetSuite at this point, you're always up to date, because to qualify as a native Suite app, our new releases have to get to NetSuite, be 100% functional, so they can deliver their releases to you. So, no change in maintenance for you when you're using a native NetSuite solution. If it's not a native NetSuite solution, then every time you have your biannual releases, you've got to do some testing to make sure your integration is sound, right? With us, you don't have to do that. So a couple of our primary solutions I want to talk about, and then we'll dive into the demo. So the configurator is really the primary engine of our solution. This is what gives you the easy to use and manage interface to ask questions about, what's the product or service I'm configuring. Our solution can handle any level of complexity to determine your product or solution. We can, we can reference tables, we can do very complex calculations, develop charts, and at the same time that we're determining the configuration of the product or service, we're determining the price. So it's not figure out what we need and then go get the price. For us, it's all in one at the exact same time in real time, and of course without errors. We have a couple of solutions that are available to help facilitate online commerce, be it business to business or business to consumer. And because we're part of NetSuite, we work seamlessly with Suite Commerce Advanced. We do work seamlessly with third-party e-commerce sites like Shopify or Magento, but that is a sort of a standard integration through APIs. And as a company, if you're not doing it today, we certainly see this as it is the next big thing for B2B sales, is online commerce and the ability to handle self-serve configurations, whether it's product or service. I like to think of our proposal generator as more of a document generator, similar to what Tim showed before, but not leveraging advanced PDF out of the NetSuite. We give you a tool to develop templates for documents to bring in information, static or dynamic, from anywhere in NetSuite. So it could be a proposal, and that's where it's used most often, but it could be installation instructions. It could be a contract, anything where you want to pull in dynamic data along with static data and present that in a document of some sort. Ooh, so with that, I'm going to dive into a demo. Does anybody have any questions before I begin? I was upstaged by Tim. I don't have any questions, but Tim's presentation was fantastic. I know a little bit of SQL, so that was pretty interesting to see. But now I'll dive into our demo here. So here I am in a demo environment, and by the way, I'm looking off to my big screen so I can see it here. Here I'm in an active quote screen, so a quote entry screen. Our solution will put launch buttons on 3 transactions: the opportunity, the quote or estimate, and sales order. We can put it anywhere else, but this is predominantly where we see them being used. And so instead of a salesperson coming down to the item level and typing in an item and searching for it in the menu and maybe clicking on the wrong one and waiting a couple seconds for it to load and fixing their mistake, we're going to launch a configurator. So I'll do that here. And this first step, you won't need to do, right? We have a lot of different demos that we've done over the years. And so your company is likely to have a single configurator. So you will jump to a screen that looks much more like this, that's tailored to your situation, product or service. So what are we seeing here, right? So we've now popped out, we're in Verenia, which is still inside of NetSuite. This is our UI. We're going to give you an area for images if images help drive your sale. So, product people really helps. Service and technology, not as much, but it's there if you need it. We have an area for validations. I'll show you what some of these look like. And this really guides that user, regardless of whether they're an internal user or an external user. It helps guide them through the process, allows them to sort of make simple mistakes, but allows them a chance to correct them and understand the product better. And then we have the summary, where we're going to see these totals add up as we go through and we answer questions about the product or service. The rest of this here is really sort of the canvas. And when you buy Verenia, this is all blank. This is what's out of the box, is the functionality behind it, the ability to do this easily. Any NetSuite admin or super user can really do a lot. Everybody on this call can get in and set these questions up, right? It really is that simple. But we can organize things with tabs, with groups, and then we're going to ask questions. And our solution is going to allow a couple things to happen where we have an advantage over a lot of our competitors. The first is we don't have to expose questions if they're not pertinent to the situation. So I have a lot more questions to ask about the door that we're going to configure today, but you can see right now I only have 4, right? I have what type, what family, is this coming from a favorite, Do you want to apply a credit, right? So very, very simple. Now, as I go through this, I'll start exposing other questions when it pertains to that particular answer that I've given. The other thing that's unique about Vereni is we can work in multi-direction. I'll show you an example of this where I can go through and complete a configuration, and if I need to go back and make a change, I make a change, and we instantly revalidate that configuration. And if there's a problem, we'll tell you. So that will be coming up. So the first question I want to answer is the door family or style. I select joinery, and now I get a whole host of additional questions. When I select this particular model, that's the one that I want, I get more questions. I also get an image and some base information. In this particular case, we have a default door. It's just the standard glass insert maple default is what we go with. But if you look, I now have a price. I can see the itemization of what makes up that price. I can also see the part number right here, right? And so this is a smart part number. As I make changes, like if I change this to oak, you'll see that change, right? If I add cathedral glass, you'll see that change. Cathedral glass changed the price. And here's our first validation. Because I've selected oak and cathedral glass, this has been found in stock. So even though we manufacture custom from time to time, we might have something that we've already made and it's on a shelf. So we've recognized that, and now you're shipping what's on the shelf instead of creating a duplicate, right? So very powerful right there. I'm gonna go back to maple for this example. This image we can, this is done in 2D overlays, but we can get a lot more complex, three-dimensional visualization where we can put a door in a room and let the person see it, that sort of thing. Continuing on through some of these questions. So I'm just sizing up this door, and I'm going to select a large door here and a jamb, if I can select the radio button. And so now I've sort of selected my door and what I want to have with it. The next step is, do we have to, make any cutouts? And I do want the door handle, the door lock, the hinges, right? So I'm going to select yes. And you see this is a very clean page, but as soon as I select yes, I get more questions. As soon as I select hinges, handles, and door lock, I get more questions. And now I've changed to a different view. So you'll see how this is used to help drive that sale. And this is a good example of how we can leverage simple diagrams to help that sales user or customer through the process, especially your customers doing self-serve, because they might not be as educated about your product or service as your internal team, right? So visuals really help in those types of sales. So for the hinges, I need to select how many do I want. And I came into this thinking, well, I want a door with 3 hinges, but I see that the 3 hinge option is grayed out, you see here. And so we can put in a tooltip where I hold my cursor over it and it says that 3 hinges is not compatible with this size of door. So that user has a notion coming in that they want 3 hinges. Now they can't select it and they're sort of like put off by that. But with the tooltip, they can understand the reasoning why. And then they go, oh, that makes sense. I want to support the door. They select 4 hinges and we're good. Okay. Another thing we can do here is if, now that we've got this image, or I've selected 4 hinges, do we want to change the location of that? I have the location as a default, but if I change the location, for example, from the top down to 15 inches, it can change all of these. It didn't scale the diagram, but it still tells that user, hey, this is where the hinges are going to be on that particular door. So I mentioned before multi-directional capabilities. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to force an error. So let's say, for example, that I've saved this quote. It could be on the same phone call. It could be later in the day. It could be a month away when you're finally getting back to this configuration, talking to the customer. And we're going to go back and we're going to confirm everything. And they confirm that it's actually a different door height. It's not an 8-foot door. It's a 6'8" door. And as soon as I make that selection, I get this validation here. And so, this validation, we're putting it out there in red, so it's very obvious to see. We also have behind the scenes a business rule that won't let me save this configuration because of this incompatibility. Some things that are incompatible or validations that pop up, we can let slide. This is not one of them, okay? So it says, go find the areas in red. If I scroll up, I see very clearly in machining requirements, it's a hinge problem again. On a shorter door, my tooltip is telling me for a door of this size, it's not required. We recommend 3. So I could either select 3 or I go back and double check my door height. Again, this really helps that user become error-free. And it's the best way to take a B2B customer through configurations with this type of multi-directional capability. And by the way, you don't have to write all of these combinations. If you write a set of rules, no matter how those rules are broken, these errors will fire and will point you in the right direction to fix them. I'm going to fix these at the door level here. Select my 8-foot door, the validation goes away right away. So, you know, we're sub-second fast, which is faster than everybody else that I see. Multi-directional capability. Show you a couple more things here. In the hardware section, I might select a door handle and a door lock. And I'm not sure if you noticed it when I did it, but this particular handle and this door lock are 2 different finishes, right? This is a bronze finish. This is a nickel finish. And so we have a software validation indicating that our lock and our handle are different finishes. Are you sure you want to do that? Now, functionally, it doesn't matter what the color of the lock is, it will work in that door, right? However, you want to confirm with the customer, or if you're the customer, you want to confirm with yourself that you didn't accidentally just select the wrong one, right? So we can go ahead and select that. Before I do, I want to take a moment and talk to you about bills of materials. So anybody on this call who's, you know, manufacturing or assembling, they're leveraging bills of materials at some point, or will as they grow. And, you know, I mentioned earlier that we will determine the bill of materials based on your business rules, and we'll create that in NetSuite. So we give you a look at what that might look like. And this is what the bill of materials would be for what I've selected. We haven't created a bill of materials yet. And even when we save this, we won't create the bill of materials. But we know these answers. So when this becomes a sales order, then we'll supply the information to create a bill of materials automatically in NetSuite. So here, I want to point out, here we've got the doorknob in nickel finish, the deadbolt in bronze finish, and the hinge is in nickel finish. So I didn't select the finish for the hinge. We've used a business rule to tie that finish for the hinge to the doorknob, okay? If I make that change from the bronze finish to the nickel finish, my validation goes away, and my bill of materials becomes shorter, because now our solution has the sense that now that I have a matching lock set and handle, I can use a kit. So pull the kit out of stock rather than individuals. Okay, so really powerful in what we can do there. Same thing goes for routing. So if you are a manufacturer and you need to specify what gets pulled off the shelf, how do we cut it? How do we fasten it? How do we miter it, bend it, whatever? We can put all those instructions in here. And again, nothing gets written to NetSuite until that becomes a sales order. We don't want to clutter anything up, and we'll always check to see if it's been done before, so we never create duplicates. So our solution can handle, you know, attachments, calculations, work with promotions, or you can create the promotions out of here instead of out of NetSuite if you wish. Pricing, I have an example for you in a different demo account because this one's not fully built out yet. But what I do want to point out is this little term here, authorized. Because NetSuite is role-based, we know who that user is, right? As if they're a sales user, customer service rep, sales manager, engineering, whatever. Since we know who they are, we can expose things to them or hide things from them based on that. So pricing would be if you're authorized to view pricing. So a salesperson might be, an engineer probably wouldn't be, right? So multiple users can leverage our solution, and you have control over who sees what, just like you would expect normally in NetSuite. So my example for pricing controls, I talked about this earlier, sort of putting boundaries on your salespeople. Here's an example that I've just populated a product at this price, and I can put in different discounts. So I could put in a 10% discount, and when I click off of it, you'll see it change the margin of this order down to 27, and the discount shows up here. It's all fast in real time. I can put that discount on a particular item, an item class, globally across the sale. I can also do dollar values, right? So, or mix and match. So here I've got percentage and dollar value, and then you can get into the ridiculous. You can continue to add discounts. And in this one, I'm now going to drive my margin below a threshold. And so I've driven it below 15%. So now I get a different validation rule saying that because I'm below 15%, I need level 1 or 2 authorization required for that. And if I go even further, I could say, now you've driven it so low, you got to go to the boss, right? So a lot of flexibility there, and we can give those people a workflow where you can come in, request that authorization, describe why you're doing it, go ahead and submit that. And this could go by email, or it could just become a notification on somebody's dashboard, on a manager's dashboard. And they'll see it, they'll be able to come in here, have that conversation with the sales rep, and then authorize it if it's worth authorizing, or deny it, right? And then it can become a sales order. But prior to that, it cannot be. So back to the door here, I'm going to go ahead and save this and put this into a proposal. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So I have to save that transaction and then come back into the edit page. So give me a moment. So now back into the edit page, I want to point something out before we look at proposal. That particular door that we created, we've leveraged this description to put in those things that I selected that make that door unique, but we're using a generic item number. So we don't have to do it that way. We could create that item at that point when we save it. Most customers don't. Most customers wait until the sales order comes. So we'll leverage a generic part number. And you see this description, but the reality is we've captured a lot of data about that particular configuration. And that's really what we're going to use to create that item bill of materials and routing when we reach the sales order stage. So we've now saved that. We want to create a proposal. That's any number of templates you can create. I have one here. So now instead of, sort of the expedient or plain Jane way of your quotes looking just like an invoice, you can leverage the proposal generator to really make it a world-class document. And here you can, print PDF, make it a Word doc, whatever you need to do. And then, here you get to put out there to that customer what you want. So it's very rich with graphics. You can describe your company. Why should they buy from you? You're a leader in your class, only use the finest materials, the best people. However you want to word it, you can put that in here. We have some tie back information to the quote, which is always the quote in NetSuite, which is always great to have. And then here's that particular product or service where, what's the quantity, what's the price and extended price. The way we've constructed this is what you see in bold. These are the pieces that I selected that are unique. What you see here in sort of marketing script, that's, indicative of what would be some boilerplate information. So now I've selected maple. So the boilerplate's going to tell, hey, where do we source our maple, right? Things of that nature. Now that's the product information. At the same time, we're pulling in customer information. So we know if they require a deposit, what are their payment terms, things of that nature. If a customer is coming in and doing this themselves, the pricing they would see, you could show them, here's the retail on that, here's your discount on that, right? Or if you're using it, if you have a distributor or anything else like that. So whatever information you want to bring in from NetSuite, you can do that. And then you just save it and send it to the customer.
So that one we're going to do with October.
So that concludes my demo of the configurator. Any questions for anybody?
That looks really good, Bill. I imagine behind the scenes and all the rules and how it flows is, fairly complex. Is that something that's on the user or a service that you guys offer?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. So the complexity can vary, but we pride ourselves in being the easiest to use from sort of the administrative point of view. So it varies from customer to customer, but say 50 to 80% of all the business rules that you can put in, that would be done at the user level through a user interface we have with a really simple syntax. It's almost plain English, where you're really taking your products, abbreviating them, and writing them out in plain English with a couple of syntax operators, right? Like an and or a comma or a slash. Certain meanings to those, so you can say if this and this and this and this, but only on Tuesday if it's raining, no problem. Those types of rules you can put in. Other rules can be scripted. So we do have the capability to leverage JavaScript, and we also have a JavaScript helper. So when it comes to an implementation, what we'll do is we'll work with your team to the extent that they want to be involved. Everybody has to be involved to some extent because we don't know your product or service. But a typical implementation would be, we'll start with the user interface, which is really the Q&A that your sales or engineers or product team would ask. We show you how to build that out. We show you, here's how you select a dropdown versus a checkbox, etc. Teach you the syntax, and this is in one day, and then send you out on your way. Build out your user interface how you want. If you have questions, ask us. Once that's built out, then we start tying in the business rules. Some are easier than others. Some can be complex. And we always say, if it's complex or beyond your team's skill set or bandwidth, use us. But we will teach you whatever you want to know, even the scripting side. So, we do the professional services, but we're a software company first, right? We're going to teach you how to do most of the professional services if that fits your business model.
Bill, one of my Canadian customers, they use your product
Okay.
using Street Commerce, and they really love it.
Great.
And they just went live last year, but they have now their customers have a lot of options to build their own codes within Street Commerce, and they're pretty happy with your product.
Great. That's good to hear. Which customer is that? Can you say?
I would not name it, but they are based in Calgary, and they build manufacturing technology for grain market.
Oh yes, I'm aware of that one. Fantastic. Yeah, that's good to hear.
And I know one customer who is looking to implement.
Perfect. Are they engaged with us? If not, reach out to me afterwards. But
they are engaged with you guys.
Great. So there's just one last thing, unless there's additional questions. All right. So we've got a $25 gift card from Amazon in a little raffle, and I've already pulled a name. So drum roll, and we've got Melanie Leinhart is the winner of that. So Melanie, I'll get your information after, and I'll get that sent out to you today or tomorrow before the weekend, before the holiday shopping begins. Right, begins earlier every year.
Oh,
That's awesome. Thanks very much, Bill.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. If anybody ever has any questions, feel free to reach out. If you don't have the time to jot this down, the Ontario user group team has my information, or you can just reach out to us at verenia.com.
Awesome. Great. Thanks again, Bill.
All right.
Thanks for sponsoring. Yep. Really appreciate it.
Happy to do it. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Let me just share my screen again, and All right, so next on our agenda is our Suite World 2021 investigative reporters. So that's Rajneesh and I are going to go through a few. I have some slides. Rajneesh is going to go through a little bit of his experience, and I hear it was a great one.
Thanks, Mark. So guys, it was my first Suite World, and I'm looking for next year as well. It was a great experience, like to be in person, to know your customer, to meet with people you already working remotely, and to know more about like NetSuite Suite apps, which probably you don't know that they exist, and we always try to build some type of customization, but we can leverage those Suite apps to add on additional functionality within NetSuite. But one of the best thing about Suite World is like you come to know like what's the new products NetSuite has been launched for its customers. So I would like to share some of the products I'm excited about. For the first one is Suite Banking. Basically, it's end-to-end banking for NetSuite customers. Basically, like if you're a NetSuite user, so NetSuite has partnered with HSBC Bank. For example, you have an invoice in NetSuite. You don't need to buy like additional module like VersaPay or SoluPay. NetSuite has provided inbuilt functionality. You send your invoice to your customer. They can pay using credit cards or ACH, and that goes to HSBC Bank. And NetSuite automatically connect with HSBC Bank and get your information and do the bank reconciliation for you. And I mean, that's I think one of the best product of NetSuite for this 2021. The second one was more like a NetSuite Analytics Warehouse. It's more like a tool like Tableau, Power BI. So using this tool, you connect with NetSuite and you can get all the data from NetSuite into this tool. You can manipulate this data. And the best thing about this tool, it's not just between NetSuite and this tool. There are other 20 options from where you can export the data from other systems into this tool, and you can like do a lot of reporting and saved searches. And I mean, I'm very excited to like to get access to this tool, but I'm not quite sure at this moment how the pricing looks like. Is it more like one free license per user, or is it more like you need to buy additional licenses for your company? The third one I'm very excited about is NetSuite Connector. Basically, it's a former FAR app. So NetSuite has bought it like I think last year or this year. So it was like a big word in Suite World. Basically, using NetSuite Connector, like I have one customer where I'm already using this one as a FAR app. So basically, this connector work as like a Sligo or Dalboomi, like a middleware, where like, for example, from NetSuite, you want to, like if you're an Amazon reseller, right now, either you have to use Sligo, Dalboomi, or some kind of middleware, or if you are selling on Shopify. But using this connector, it has pre-built, I would say, packages. And I would say it probably might be it takes 5 to 8 hours just to go live from NetSuite to any marketplace. Right now, it's for like Shopify, Amazon US, Best Buy US. But I get an opportunity to discuss about the roadmap. Now they are looking more to implement like Amazon, Best Buy Canada, Walmart Canada. And other than that, there are some really cool features coming up. For example, right now we have the ability to do a sandbox refresh only from the production. So they are launching probably like might be next couple of months to have the ability to refresh from one sandbox to another sandbox. And the other one like is like now in future you would be able to control like when you want to update your production system. Right now, like NetSuite gives you a date. On that particular day, right, your system gets updated to the newest release. But NetSuite will give you the ability, for example, like you don't want to update your system on Black Friday, right? You don't want to break your integration. So NetSuite would provide you the ability to control that, like when you can upgrade your system to the newest release. Other than that, I mean, so right now, like we have limited functionality when it comes to saved searches and reports. The biggest focus of this suite world was workbooks. Using workbooks, like you can build data sets. It gives you more ability, like to manipulate data, to create your pivot tables, and other thing was more like Sweet Talk REST APIs. Pretty much, I mean, it was 4 days for me, and I was like busy overall, like from morning to I would say midnight. The only time I feel I was in Vegas, like it was a Sweet World party, and I would suggest, like if you're a NetSuite end user, just go there, and you will be imagined by how NetSuite works, and it's a great software. Any question for me?
That's awesome, Rajneesh. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I'm going to just share my screen again. So there were a few things that we overlapped on, which is great. So because when there's more than one of us that are interested in it, chances are everybody is interested. Everybody see my screen? Okay. All right, so I wasn't able to be there in Vegas this time, although that was the plan, but some last minute changes barred me from that. So I did do the on air. Sorry, let me just switch this. I did the on air experience, which I thought was pretty good. From a high level, the keynotes were really good and pretty clear, but the individual sessions, it was very blurry to read any screen demos or anything else.
I was going to say that
really
the on air actually sucked because you couldn't see anything they're doing, and then they ask you for questions and then never answered any of them because it was pre-done.
Yeah, it was a little. So they did have a question answer. It was on the right hand side, which was live.
They never answered any of the questions in the sessions I was in. None of them.
Oh, really? Oh,
None
that's disappointing because I did have some interactives.
People were commenting and going, "So you're not going to answer my questions?" It was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that some of that feedback gets back to NetSuite and we improve the experience. I know I certainly filled out the survey.
Somebody from NetSuite's listening, that's for sure.
Good, thank you, Gavin. And it's being recorded.
So just to talk about on air quickly, that's good feedback about the screen being blurry. I didn't know anything about that.
Well, and they were actually telling the speakers we cannot see your screens, and they ignored it completely.
Well, so the sessions were all pre-recorded in this new tool that we used called Meeting Point or Meeting Play or something like that. But then what was meant to happen was that the person who did the presentation was meant to be on the session live to answer questions. So because of some scheduling issues, i.e. a lot of the SEs who put the demos together, who put the sessions together, were at Sweet World in the demo pod area. And so they weren't always available, but that's something we've got to work on for sure. So, but I'll take that feedback back to the team for definitely.
Given, I think all the sessions in Sweet World, they are available till November 24th. Like if you have missed any of the session, you can go to Sweet Answers and look for that particular session, and they will be available till November 24th.
Yeah, that's what they said. But if you can't see the screen, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty tough. You're kind of guessing as to what you're seeing and what they're doing, unfortunately.
Yeah, might be able to do something about that because it might be something. I mean, they were recorded in like high res, so it might just be in the way that they were played back. So we might be able to adjust the resolution when we play it back, but I'll find out.
Thanks, Gavin.
Send you a few examples there, Gavin, but it's pretty wide. So I took down a few notes in the keynotes. I had way more notes taken during Gary's the second keynote versus the first one with Evan. But with Evan, Rajneesh is talking about the suite banking that's coming, where we've partnered. NetSuite's partnered with HSBC to start, and then maybe there'll be others as well in the future. They're kind of hinting at that. Insights within Suite Analytics, the big news there again was the multiple data sets can be, so it's almost like, yes, it's a data warehouse now that Suite Analytics is moving to, whereas, I'm using Power BI. So I'm exporting everything out of NetSuite and using Power BI as my data warehouse. It would be great to have it inside of NetSuite. And what we saw Tim do as well, with multiple joins, getting away from multiple saved searches to do the same thing. That's awesome tool as well. So there's many ways of getting access to data within NetSuite, and even more coming, which is fantastic. In the second keynote, everything seemed to revolve around a theme, and that was the 360 dashboards that are either coming, or maybe there's some right now. But the mobile dashboard I thought looked really good. The customer 360, the item 360 was very cool. And I do have a few.
I created that, so you're welcome. So.
Hey, excellent. Way to go, Kevin. The cash 360, and I think it was the supply chain 360, but I may have the name wrong there. But I think the direction that NetSuite's going in with the dashboard views is going to be a huge
so this is all based on we now have access to some new developer tools from Oracle called JET, which I think stands for Java Extended some other template or language, some tool set. I think that's what it is. And so that's now available to the team that I work on. And so our teams are actively building. So there's the project 360, that'll probably be the first one that comes out. The item 360 should follow shortly after that, and the customer 360, and then there's some other ones. But basically, they looked some of the look and feel looked a little different. You might have noticed, but that's again, it's because we have access to some new tools from Oracle, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have a few screenshots if people did not attend those keynotes as well. But I would highly recommend at least going through Gary's keynote and getting pretty excited about what's coming. There's a few other things: the My Accounts, the connectors, the planning workbench, the bill scanning, and the last session I thought was probably one of the better ones. I think it's on the on-demand and not on the air, but it was unexpected error, troubleshoot like a pro. I was expecting them to actually, is there something in the URL or in the browser or something that, because we all get that unexpected error and then we don't know really what's going on, but they had some great troubleshooting tips regardless in that session. I copied down a few of their slides that were presented, but this is a good one if anybody is supporting NetSuite. So the customer 360 that Gavin had said, it looks a little different now, absolutely different. You seem to have these tabs at the side. It's almost like a Suite Analytics workbook that becomes your dashboard. And I'm not sure if Gavin is that is the direction and that's how you build this up, but it kind of looks that way.
There's two options. You can do it. You can have the tabs across down the left. You can have them across the top. It'd be kind of like and just for full clarity, these were all mock-ups they were showing, but they are actively in development. So
okay, good. So this isn't exactly how we're going to see it, but
it's using the same tool set, so it should look similar in the end. Awesome. We did not include anything that was not possible.
Good.
So Gary's very particular with that. I don't know why, but there you go.
The NetSuite connectors was pretty interesting. That they're getting into the area of competing, against the Soligo or Boomi or others there. But having it native in NetSuite would be excellent that way. I assume that it's going to be fairly simple methods, of doing your imports. Like here you have some settings and mappings, maybe it will be right down to, oh, I've got custom fields and I need a map and build rules out, because I use Boomi for, our 80 EDI trading partners, and each customer is very unique. as to what their map looks like and what rules we need to apply and what custom fields we need to have data into and pull out of. But excited to see at least something here within native NetSuite that will be available. You know, this is the Amazon one here. You can see some of the options here, and that slide that Gary showed was really just the main data sinks that you can turn on or turn off. And again, you know, you're doing your own mappings. There was a question in the chat on what integrations will be launched, and this was the slide that at least named a few of the others. So BigCommerce is part of it. That was in the chat. Excited about Shopify. I'd like to see what is going on with Shopify and WooCommerce. Those are two that that we're using here at Danby. My account.
There's a Shopify did their own announcement about a new relationship with us. And there is like a whole roadmap for the connectors. So I'll put you in touch with Kevin, who's the PM for it. And maybe he can, in a future session, he can walk you through what we're planning.
Awesome, awesome.
Mark,
Mark,
I would like to add here, especially NetSuite connector and ShipStation integration. At this moment, the ShipStation is the only item fulfillment software which has a direct integration between NetSuite Fire App and ShipStation.
Okay. Okay, good to know. And I know that you mentioned you know, Best Buy Canada. I would be interested to see what Canadian companies are. These just the US affiliates, or are they Canadian ones as well? So Gavin, that would be a question that we'll follow up on with the project manager on that.
Mark, I can answer this question. Right now, it's only Amazon US, Walmart US. It does not support Walmart Canada and Best Buy Canada. That's I'm trying to implement something for my customer.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. This is my account, and it's not my account. It's, you know, the offering of my account within NetSuite, which was actually news to me, you know, until a couple months ago. So we're in the middle of implementing this right now for our customers, where they can log in and see their invoices, see the purchases, see ETAs on products, and pay invoices as well. The payment side may come later for at least our integration with Danby, but it is available there. Credit card and ACH. And again, I need clarity on that. Is that US only, or is it Canadian only? What's the offering there? I heard ACH is only in the US and not in Canada. It needs to be a different way, but these are some of the things that we're running into now. But it's good that they're continually improving the My Account option as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting, Mark, because I've got a lot of clients that are looking at Coupa. They want everything to be done in Coupa, and then it just comes to NetSuite as an after fact. And I keep on trying to mentioning this, and they're going, it doesn't do that, and it doesn't do this. And I'm like going, okay, NetSuite's losing business because Coupa is clearly offering more than what NetSuite is. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say about that is that, you know, we can't do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have partners. So it might seem, so I get it. I mean, it'd be nice if it worked everywhere. But you know, we have a term we use internally, co-opetition. So you know, we're happy to have partners, but you know, at some point, I mean, a good example is WMS, right? So we felt that, you know, we know we have good partners that are RF Smart and guys like that, but we feel that those specific functions should be part of core ERP, and so we went out specifically to address the WMS, the shortfall between WMS and RF Smart. So, yeah. And now we have like 1,300 customers. So you know, this we can't do that with everything. But those things do bubble up to the top eventually, and when we can, we'll do something about it. So,
yeah, makes sense, Kevin. Yep. A snapshot of the planning workbench as well. I thought this was pretty interesting with, you know, highlighting late demand. So, you know, pushing information relevant to a planner of issues or
You have no
with the
idea
item
how many times
365?
I had to record that demo.
Yeah.
Doing keynote demos are always fun.
Yeah. The item 360, awesome. I think it's super cool having all of the information, all of the tabs here. You know, this one here is just the item overview, but you can set your KPIs and everything on the actual item that you're looking at. And then they had allocations as well, which is something we're getting into. It's turning on our supply allocation now, and having NetSuite run a lot of the allocations and the commits automatically based on those settings. So this looks great. This looks awesome. I can't wait to see more on this one.
Mark, this is the concept of you can allocate a product to a customer without actually having to do a fake sales order. Like the idea that you have customer loyalty and they get first dibs while they get that.
Well, so the biggest difference between allocations and commitments is that commitments only worked with actual on-hand inventory. So allocations was built to be able to allocate future inventory. So and on hand and future. So they'll allocate from an inbound PO, work order, transfer order, even an inbound shipment. And then allocate that, and then you create rules that dictate which in what sequence they're allocated, and then you can reallocate in different ways as well. So that's the general concept.
Nice.
Quick question here on this allocations. Do you have to have like advanced manufacturing? Do you have to have the auto calculate for reorder points on? What do you need? And is this built in?
It's built in. It's free. It's I think all you need is advanced inventory and probably MLI, which everybody has, which is multi-location inventory. I think that's pretty much it.
So how do you find out more about this? Is this available now?
Yeah, it's been out for 2 years. It's just it's enhanced if released. So if you just go and do help or sweet answers and look up supply allocation, then you'll find it in there.
Thank you.
Thought this was an interesting one. It's OCRing your invoices to create a bill. And I have some of this functionality already through SquareWorks. They're another partner on the East Coast, but this being integrated right into NetSuite would be ultra cool. And the mapping, you literally click on this invoice and click on whatever field you want, and then it learns to, when it sees this cloud consulting again, it just knows what that mapping is. It's pretty intuitive that way. I thought that's great. And even seeing in this view, your PDF here as well as your record in NetSuite is really great too. And I wish that feature was in almost every file, right? Any files that are attached on a record, you just see them on the side. That would be awesome. But really good new feature too. So I did take some notes on the unexpected error, troubleshoot like a pro. These are just snippets, of things that I always have to go and look up. What are all the different text fields and what's the limitations on those? How many characters? I always forget the permissions. So edit is everything except delete, but full is also deleting. But then what is create? Well, create is only viewing and creating. It's not the editing and deleting. So got to be careful with your permissions. And, this is a good slide to just remind ourselves on that. I won't go through all of the common suite scripting errors, but it will be in the slides that we'll put online. Okay, but there's some really good info here, like going to the stack trace to find exactly where in the script something is failing if you do custom scripts, different problem scenarios or different errors, and kind of leading you to where to look. And I thought this was really good, and I actually reviewed this with my technical team here as well at Danby, was going through best practices. So your internal controls, always documenting, have consistency in your solutions, and making sure performance and scalability is key. So we do things in sandbox and move it to production, which again, it's different speeds. It's hard to really see, hey, is this script really going to slow down our sales order or is it not? What is the performance going to be like? That's still a hiccup for us, but you have to always have performance and scalability in mind. A lot of our programmers tend to like to code to a specific customer, and they put that actually in the code, where now we're pulling that out, and it should be a checkbox on the customer record. So if it's looking for that checkbox, then do this test or do this rule. That's an example of how to get scalability without having tickets to our team to continually update scripting or workflows. Okay, so Gavin, I hope we've left you enough time to do some of the 2021.2 highlights. I know you've done this a few times for other groups as well, so I think you've got this down pat and probably not rehearsed anymore. And Tom's not able to attend today, but Gavin does have this bank reconciliation module covered in his presentation too, and I think it might be even a video from Tom. So I'll stop sharing, Gavin, and put it over to yourself.
Cool. Hold on a second. I need to go and do more there. So yeah, the funny thing is that everything you guys ask about the features for the top features, etc. I'm already on to 22.1. So it's been a while since I talked about 21.2, but I can't show you anything that's in that, of course. So, but that kind of gives you an idea of just from a timeline perspective, where everything lies. You can see my screen, right? Okay, so we try and do, so we basically have organized everything by themes, and I'll explain what those are. Mostly I'm going to be talking about stuff that you already have, but I just do this in here in case I go off track a little bit and talk about something in the future, which is quite likely to happen. So I'm in the industry or vertical product management team. I've been with NetSuite for 11 years. And so it's basically our team's job to make sure that the features that we release are appropriate for the industries that we serve. This kind of gives you enough idea of the numbers. I always like to show this. I think last time I showed, we were actually, the last version of this slide I had, we were at 2,100 employees. So we are growing rapidly. And so now we have also have developers in 16 countries. That's thanks in large part to Oracle. Before the Oracle acquisition, we probably had developers in 4 or 5 countries. So we're much broader now. So this kind of gives you an idea of the verticals that we serve. And overall, it's split pretty evenly between what we call products and services. So about 52% of the customer base are what we call product industries. So manufacturing, distribution, retail, AFA, health and beauty, etc. As opposed to the 48% covering financials and the other services and software industries. So it's a pretty even split. And so what we do basically is for themes, if you see across the top, we have the different verticals or industries that we serve. And then these are the themes that we have established. And basically the idea behind themes is that everything that we release should fall into one of these themes. If it doesn't, we shouldn't be doing it. And so that's kind of the way that we help communicate to the development teams what we should be doing and what the priorities are. So I'm just going to go through by the different themes. I'm not going to spend too long on each of these. But if there's questions, either put them in the chat and I'll get them later. And I'll stop at the end to see what other questions I can answer. This is an interesting one. This was a big customer request over the years. Basically, in item records, if you updated your asset or calls accounts, it would go back and all of your historical transactions would be changed as well. So so now there's what this lets you do is when you're making any of those changes, you can either choose to change the historical accounts if you want to, or transactions if you want to, or you can leave them as is. So again, one of those things that was a big customer request, and we always look at what those enhancements are. Cross subsidiary, we've been doing requisitions and procurements. We've been doing small enhancements to this for years, and so basically now this is really all about centralized purchasing. So now you can see requisitions from across your business, consolidate them together and consolidate the procurement based on those. This is what we're going to look at a little bit later, so I won't spend too much time on this. Tom has recorded a video that shows both this and also the Cash 360. So we'll have a look at those later. This is basically, so you can, we launched this 2 releases ago, I think, or maybe 1 release ago. And basically what that does is it lets you validate purchases against the budget. Initially that budget was a custom budget field. So now this is also, you can choose to use your standard budget records in NetSuite, and it'll do validation on purchase orders against those, and you can stop purchase orders if you want to. So it gives you some more control.
And this is in NetSuite, but not the budget model. This is in native NetSuite.
Yeah. So okay. It's on, and this is all. The only difference is that previously we added like a custom record for the budget to track the validation against. So now you can also use the standard budget record in NetSuite.
Excellent. Excellent. So you may not need the budget model at all.
Right.
Frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not using NetSuite for budgeting, you can just use the custom record option instead. And also sometimes people didn't want the budget for your actual budget to be the same budget as what you're using for validation. Right.
And so we're going to do value. So value versus budget benefit is something that's missing now. So this is awesome.
Right.
I'm sorry, when did you say this was coming?
It's already out. It's in 21.2. This should be a.
So enable features? Is that how
it'll be a bundle or a suite app.
Ah, okay.
This is a suite app.
Yeah, I think it's a suite app.
Oh, okay. I'll look for it. Cool.
It's either a bundle or a suite app. The different bundles are still going to be around for a while, but think of bundles as the old way of distributing solutions. Suite apps is the future of delivering them. Not everything that's a bundle will be a suite app for a while. So
okay, so this is out in the current model I have, which I'm not even aware of. So this is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, how?
There you go.
Yay!
So projects, of course, there's only one feature in here currently. We are actively working on the Project 360 that we downloaded at SuiteWorld. So that's going to be coming out early next year. But basically what we did around projects is there's been a bunch of behind the scenes stuff going on with projects. But basically in this release, we extended suite approvals to projects. Delivering your mission, which is basically for non-profit companies. And so we have, which we're an area that we're really successful in, by the way. We have lots of customers in that space. And so we have a new role and dashboard for our development director, which is common within that industry. And then modern business models. Modern business models we look at as being so things like billing and some things that would go across, maybe across industries. And so this gave you the ability to do delta charges if your billing strategy changed. bulk activations on subscriptions. And then this is just the connector, so standard integrations to Commerce to different marketplaces and that sort of thing. Again, look for more stuff with Shopify. There's more stuff in the pipes with them. Down to my area of expertise, supply chain. So we've been everything we've done since we launched supply planning has been based on customer feedback, basically a lot around performance to make sure that it runs adequately. We launched the time phase view. We added weekly and monthly buckets to that, so you can go and see your demand and supply balance in different time formats. You can now go and allocate by profit or revenue. So think of this as you might have your default allocation strategy as to optimize on-time delivery, but then you find yourself in a situation where you have 10 of something, but you have demand for 20. So this would let you basically go and say, okay, reallocate the 10 that I have to make the most profit or to get the most revenue, and then you can go and do some little tweaks like that, which is kind of cool. This is actually a patent pending, by the way. Nobody else does this. Earliest item availability. So basically what this lets you do is go in and just think of this as like available to promise, but using the allocation strategies. So you can basically go in and you can pick a subsidiary and an item. You can optionally choose channels if you turn those on, put in a quantity, and then it will show you all the locations and it will show you the earliest item availability, the earliest available date on the right-hand side. So it just gives you an idea of where you should ship from. And then more visibility into the allocations and what the impact of them are. This is something that we're going to be continuing in the future. So you're going to see lots more little tweaks with the allocation engine. So basically what this is going to show you is there's links all over the place. You can drill into the allocations. You can see exactly what's allocated and you can choose to reallocate if you want to. And then I've been involved with this personally as well. So there's an upgrade guide for supply planning. Anyone who's using demand planning, supply planning is the replacement to the supply side of that. Eventually, the old item supply plans will go away. Not yet, but eventually it will do. So supply planning is the future. And so this was just an attempt to try and publish the steps that it takes to move from demand planning or from nothing to supply planning. I actually ran a session on this at SuiteWorld, and so the implementing MRP or implementing NetSuite MRP will be in Suite Answers shortly, which has a few tips and tricks that make it a little bit easier as well. Frictionless inventory management. So we launched PackStation a while ago. It lets you go and create pallets, outbound pallets, so palletization for outbound. So now what you can do is you can go and quick ship those pallets with WMS. So you can use PackStation to pack everything together, put it onto pallet, then you can use WMS to go and ship it quickly. Tally scan has been extended to inbound. So tally scanning is where you turn it on that you can every scan increments the number by 1, rather than scanning an item and saying there's 10. You can do 10 scans and it does the same thing. And then we've added a certificate of analysis, or I call it certificate of conformance. So if you're using the quality tablet, you can go and create a document that shows all the results that you collected for a specific item or lot. And we added manufacturing mobile is going to continue to become the shop floor manufacturing solution for NetSuite. So we've added the ability to go and track and track serial numbers. In the next release, it was meant to be in this release. We were meant to do assembly builds. That didn't quite make the cut because we had some other curated work to do. So assembly builds and manufacturing mobile should be in the next release as well. And then this is something that our team developed. And so it lets you go and automatically generate lot numbers in NetSuite based on a format. And also it lets you go and create your additional fields you want to go and track. So native NetSuite, you can do that, but you have to go in the transaction, you have to go and create the lot, save the transaction, then go back in, edit the lot number, and then you can add those additional fields. So this will automatically generate the lot numbers and gather the additional information and then store it all in the form for you. So this is available now, and it's going to be extended to the manufacturing mobile in the near future as well, hopefully. Oh, and also it's also going to be extended to serial numbers, I believe. So you'll automatically generate serial numbers or lot numbers. And then on the unifying customer experience side, so we've automated the website setup process. So there's kind of like a wizard type thing that walks you through the different steps. We're tracking more behavioral analytics. This was also part of one of the keynote demos we talked about. And then the pay link by invoice. Again, they showed this as part of the presentation as well. And on the employee engagement side, so this is Suite People. So we did more on automating performance reviews and added the acknowledgements for just part of that process. So you can customize acknowledgements. And some new enhancements around in the UI as well. So you're starting to see some of these other elements that I talked about. These are also from the Oracle Jet toolset. You're going to start to see more of those appear. This is something I don't think we really talked about at Street World. This is free. This is based on an Oracle tool called Guided Learning. And so basically it will walk users through how to do something within the system, and it will be free out of the box but then you can buy if you buy an extended license of it, then you can actually customize your own guided learning processes with your own terminologies and add your own workflows and that sort of thing. So this should be appearing shortly. So I'll try and get some more information exactly when that comes out. Initially, it's going to be with NetSuite Success implementations and accounts, but eventually it's going to show up in all of your accounts if you want to use it. And it's really great for like sitting a new employee down and saying, here, this is how you go and create a customer, or this is how you go and create an opportunity record, and it walks them through step by step with in context help as well, which is kind of cool. On the analytics side, I just threw these in here because based on the discussion earlier. So, so this is basically Oracle Analytics Cloud packaged up for NetSuite. So, and we maintain the connectors. So, so you can go and do all your advanced analytics. You can go and combine lots of different tools into what they call decks up here. So get all your different analytics lined up. And this is kind of gives you an idea of the hierarchy, the way we see it. So you've got your saved searches and reports, and then you got your Suite Analytics workbooks, and then you got your Suite Analytics Connect, which is where you can go and use ODBC and that sort of thing, and pull data out externally. And then you got Analytics Warehouse over here on the right. And also you can see down here at the bottom, it's comparing, what you would use, what you would do in core ERP. When you would use planning and budgeting, it's really more finance and accounting focused, and also if you're doing like an S&OP process. But then the Analytics Warehouse is more applicable to the entire business, and it lets you connect multiple data sources. So you can connect NetSuite to third-party tools or other data sources, and you can do whatever analysis you want. So we're pretty excited about the Analytics Warehouse as well. And the cool thing is that when we adopt these Oracle technologies, they basically let us reprice them for our market. So a lot of times you're getting something that would cost an Oracle customer a lot more at an appropriate rate for our customer base. So which is kind of cool.
David, this tool is available for testing purposes?
The Analytics Warehouse,
Yep.
I wouldn't think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're doing with that. In the discussion earlier, with the SQL tool, and Lisa talked about, not knowing the data structure and that sort of thing. I would highly recommend that you invest in Suite Analytics Connect, because if you connect to NetSuite through ODBC, it actually gives you the clearest view of how the records are actually structured. And so that will give you some really good opportunities. There's also tools that you can use that will connect to NetSuite through ODBC and will map all the tables out for you. I know there's at least one company that sells that service, but there's a lot of great tools that will automatically go in and do all the mapping, and it finds all the joins and presents it like a way you can drill down. So that's just a little tip there as well. Okay, so I'm not responsible for these. Tom Kelly, who I work with, just sent these videos. I watched them briefly. It looked like they made sense, so I'll just run these and take questions afterwards.
I am going to demonstrate the new bank account reconciliation and bank connectivity capabilities in NetSuite. On my NetSuite homepage dashboard, I have access to the reconciliation summary portlet that provides me with a list of information of all my bank and credit card accounts, as well as information on when they were last reconciled, when the last bank import was, and if there are any outstanding items for me to match. I can import banking data into NetSuite using files that the bank provides. NetSuite supports banking industry standards such as OFX, BAI2, MT90, and others, but alternatively, I can set up automated banking feeds that enable NetSuite to automatically import my banking data on a daily basis. NetSuite uses a financial aggregation service to import the banking data. I can easily access the list of my bank imports along with the status directly from my home page. Let's start by importing my banking transactions. So what I'm going to do here on this page is I'm going to click on Bank Feeds, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Link Bank Accounts. So I'm going to click on Edit, and I'm going to then go and I'm going to accept the credentials to link the bank accounts. So I accept the terms and conditions, and I click on Get Started. Now I can select a bank, or in this case, I can search for my own bank. And the name of our bank for this example is IQ Bank. So I type in IQ Bank, and it returns IQ Bank. I select that. I provide my user credentials, username and password, so that I can have access to the banking information. Once I enter the username and the password, I'm going to select Submit. And what will return for IQ Bank is all of the accounts that I have associated with those banking credentials. The next thing you need to do here is I'm going to select accounts and I'm going to attach them to the general ledger so that the information has a place to go. So we're going to go through an account mapping exercise. We select an account, we pick the appropriate general ledger account, and we do so for the other accounts that we have associated here. In the case here, savings, checking, as well as our credit card. I'm going to click Save. What the system is going to do is it's going to bring in all of my banking transactions associated with these accounts. Now that I have done this, I'm going to go back to my home page so that I can see all of the information that has been brought in for my banking transactions. And I can see the last time it was reconciled, the bank statement balance, bank statement date, as well as if I have any items that I still need to match. So let's match some items now. So if we go to the checking account, so now I'm going to select Matches to Submit. And what returns is all of the information that NetSuite has automatically matched based on the banking transactions and information I have in NetSuite. But there are still items that need to be matched. And I can see a difference here of $229.54 for check number 578619. I could exclude this if for some reason I need to exclude it. Perhaps I've reconciled it before. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to what I have in NetSuite. I'm going to match the transaction. Now, in doing so, I still have an unmatched $5 difference, and I know what that is. It is a banking charge. So I'm going to go into the general ledger and I'm going to map it to the general ledger code for bank charges. But what you're seeing here is the machine learning capability inherent within this application. What it's going to do in the future is when I have information like this, it's going to automatically match because it has learned how the information has to be matched and is going to apply the information to the appropriate account. And now I have zero reconciling difference. So at this point, I'm going to go back and I'm going to reconcile the account. So I submit the matched data, and now I'm going to reconcile the account. So I select Reconcile Account Statement. My difference is 0. I click Reconcile, and I have now reconciled my bank statement for this month.
That seemed like a lot of reconciling to me, but there you go. Okay, and then so the next one is Cash 360.
With Cash 360, you have everything you need for managing cash flow right at your fingertips. There are links to key cash management activities with reminders, actual cash balance, and accounts payable and accounts receivable balances displayed. The cash forecast shown reflects actual cash balance after our accounting cycle items have run, and the detailed inflows and outflows are provided by week. Below, we get a bit more granular, showing various details behind accounts payable and accounts receivable. Now we need to forecast our cash needs for the balance of the year, all right from within NetSuite. Our employee annual focal point increase of 2% will take effect in October and needs to be reflected in our cash flow forecast. We select Forecast Cash Flow and enter the payroll increase. We are also going to make a $25,000 inventory purchase in December that will continue to fuel our growth next year and provide great margins. We enter the inventory purchases and save the items to see the impact on our cash flow. Next, we will finance some receivables by selecting Receivables Financing. Once again, all right from within NetSuite. We select all, and you can see up above the summation of the selected invoices. We offer these invoices, and it brings us back to our cash flow forecast, where we see that it has helped improve our near-term cash situation, but we still need to take further action. We are going to access our revolving line of credit for $50,000. We add a line and enter the $50,000 draw on our revolver. We save this to our forecast, and now we can see that our cash flow forecast provides us with the cash necessary to meet our commitments and fuel our continued growth.
There you go. I know we went over time there. I just entered in the chat, by the way. I'm in touch with the events team who ran On Air. So if anyone has specific feedback they want to provide about On Air, then if you want to email me today, preferably, or shortly, then I will get that onto the events team so they know what's happening. So that'd be great.
Awesome, Gavin. Thank you.
Oh, just one other thing as well. And I know sometimes it seems like Canada is like an afterthought, but this is not official yet. But they are going to be opening an OCI data center in Canada because of the growth in Canada. So in the future, you'll have the choice to have your data hosted in Canada. So don't tell them I told you that, but that's happened. That's going to happen soon. So
awesome, great.
I have a question.
Margie has her hand up. Yep.
Thank you. I didn't know if you were looking at the hands up. Quick question here. And Gavin, I don't know if you can find out this answer, but with the bank reconciliation, our bank, which is Bach Financial Treasury Services, it has 3 fields you have to enter in, and NetSuite only has the ability to do like a username and password, but every time I log in I use 3 fields. Is there any plans to, even though it says it supports it, when you look in the list of financial institutions, you can't get to that 3rd field? And all I get from NetSuite is, oh, well, we can't do it. So you know, is there anything I can get more information? Like, will they ever support that for those
You mean
banks?
there's a third field for validation for
Yes.
authentication? Okay,
Correct.
I'm not sure. I'll find out.
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, I've had a similar problem, Gavin, in that secondary, like text to email authentication. So you do it the first time, and then within 24 hours, your
Right.
authentication's broken. So it drives everybody nuts, and nobody wants to use it because they don't want to go through that every night.
Right.
And when you say you'll find out, how will we get that communication? The answer, Gavin.
I will email you directly.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question, if anybody is aware, does this app still imports last 60 days of data for the first login?
Say that again.
So this app, like I used this app 2 years back. When we log in for the first time, it imports 60 days of data for an account. Does it still does?
No, well, I've seen it only do the last 30 days.
So, Lisa, your cross settlement request
Please.
is meant to be in 22.1, but it may or may not make it, but it's coming in the near future if it doesn't appear. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Gavin, there would be a great way. I mean, I'm dealing with a company with got 130 subsidiaries, and there are so many things broken when you're dealing with that many volume of subsidiaries. Like, I can't even see the list of subsidiaries because it's 5 children. And I can't read the name anywhere. And it hurts.
Sure.
And I'd love just to give someone some feedback, because it doesn't impact the smaller companies that have 5 companies.
Sure.
But this client is just hurting.
Okay. Understood.
But a good session.
I have a question about the bank recs. I'm not sure if anybody can answer it, but I was just inquiring about, you know how on the old bank rec system where you can reconcile, because how I do it is how my company does it is we reconcile like every 2 days or so. So they want the balance up to date. When you're doing the matching though, you can't technically go to that page until the end of the month, right? So it's only the match balance. Or is there a way to do like what the old version of it was, so that you can keep up to date and just make sure that you're at that you are balanced at 0? If that makes sense. I'm not sure if that made sense.
It makes sense to me, Melanie. You can do date ranges on matching. So your customer would just have to put in Jan 1 to Jan 3rd. This is all I'm matching. Reconcile account. I'm reconciling on Jan 3rd. It's 0. Move on. Next 2 days. So it's just that they have to use the date range filter as to what they're looking at.
Okay, but there's no way to do it like, I guess, like the old system where because you don't want to hit that reconcile at the end, like the last step that you do, you don't want to hit that until the end of the month. So it's only the matching that I can do technically, right?
Well, you can technically do the reconcile as well if you have all the transactions matching as of day 2. You just, it will mean you'll end up with 30 or 20 bank recs for the month, each 2 days apart. You may not like that.
Yeah, they're not going to like that.
Right. So, yeah. So what you're saying is the matching step you want to do every 2 days, but fundamentally you want to do the account reconciliation at month end, which will pull all 30 days of matching.
Like how I do it is I go in, and how I do it currently, because I haven't switched over to the new bank rec. Yeah, I don't like it. So I don't like how, because how we do it, they want it up to date and you want to be at 0 so that you don't miss anything. And then because I feel like you can eat as long as everything's accurate, yes. But there are some times where things get missed, and then you're sitting there doing, if you have 1,000 transactions per the month, you can't figure out, I have to go day by day and sit there. It's just easier when I do it every couple of days, which is what they expect, that it be balanced correctly. So that's kind of where the issue I have. But are they getting rid of, if I continue to do the old system, will it, or the old way of doing the bank rec, is are they getting rid of it at any point, or like, because I know it says it's, I just don't want one day it to just disappear on me and then I'm forced to convert. So I don't know if it's actually fully going away, or we're just,
No, we
can
don't.
use either or.
We don't typically take things away. At least
Okay.
not. We don't just add something and take something away, because we have 27,000 customers. So, and we know everyone uses NetSuite differently. So,
Okay, the only thing
at some
Gary,
point we might do, but usually there's actually a process for that. It's called the feature deprecation notification process or something. That, and it will basically say we're planning on deprecating this feature in 2 releases from there or something like that. So there's usually lots of warning before we do
So it has that warning on it right now, except it doesn't say a date.
Right. So if there's no
So-
date, it means it's not imminent. So
Oh, okay. So I just have to,
But
if
the-
I'm using it, I would
but-
just have to wait for a date, and then I'd have
right.
to.
I mean, the idea is it's saying we've replaced this with something we think is better. So but unless there's a date, I doubt it's going to actually just disappear.
That's kind of what I was looking for, because I was just worried because it had that warning that one day I would go in and it would just be gone and I'd be like stuck. But if you say there's going to be a date eventually, then that's fine. Then it gives me enough of a warning to switch over.
There's usually a direct communication from the development team to people who are using the feature that's going to be deprecated, saying it's going to be deprecated. So
Okay, then that's good. I'm glad with that then. I just wanted to make sure that one day it wouldn't go away.
hey,
Thank
Lisa,
you for your help.
Lisa, can you email me with some of your concerns about subsidiaries and things, and
pleasure.
I'll copy it in. I'll reply back to Neil, who's in charge of that part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Then you guys can talk about subsidiaries and GLs and journal entries all you want.
Yeah, no, and you know what? We're dying on the roll front. Like, it's just brutal having a roll per country, per region, and all this nonsense. So yeah.
And that applies to everyone else, by the way. If you have something that you're concerned about or you want more information on, just email me, and I will. If I don't know the answer, I'll add in the person that does, and we'll make sure you get answers.
That's awesome, Gavin. Thank you. And thanks for spearheading some of those questions for us and steering them around NetSuite. It's great. All right, last slide that I have. I'm not even going to put it into presentation mode. January 2022, on the 20th is going to be our next meeting that's scheduled. Okay, so obviously that's tentative, and but that's the target date that we'll be having. And we have another meeting sponsor from getbusy.com. Kind of a neat little product. Okay, that's everything. I'll put this recording over to Durrell, and that will be available on the members portion of our website shortly. Okay, and I'll also separate the presentation as a separate file too for you, so it's much easier to go and view. Okay, awesome, great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for attending.
Thanks.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.